This channel is supported by Truefire. Truefire is an online library.
Enough, you can get the Truefire All Access Pass for as cheap as they ever do it, the $99 thing. So just jump and do that if you're looking for the best price that you can get Truefire All Access for.
Now, I'm sure that you, like me, would have seen videos on the initial launch of the PRS Silver Sky SE where folks were saying about how similar those guitars were. Now, I've done a video more recently kind of looking at that a bit, and I personally kind of concluded that the PRS Silver Sky and the PRS Silver Sky SE are actually pretty different feeling guitars, whether it's down to like the satin feel of the neck, the radius is slightly different. I think most importantly of all, the Silver Sky SE uses a 2-point trem, whereas your normal Silver Sky has a 6-point trem. But, you know, there were some folks that were saying they're really similar. I kind of didn't think they were, and I felt like the Silver Sky SE definitely doesn't feel as premium as the Silver Sky, as you would hope, given that the price difference is huge. Now, it's happened a couple of times that actually I preferred an SE model to the equivalent core model, and this is one of the times I just needed to check back on. First of all, you know, PRS had sent me the Miles Kennedy version, which is essentially this guitar but with some slightly different pickups, right? And then they had also sent me to check out, these are just loaner guitars, the PRS NF53, the black version. And I really liked that one. I preferred that to the Miles Kennedy. It was a bit lighter. And then yesterday this shows up. So this is the SE model. Now I did pick it up out of the case and I thought I need to double check whether this is in fact an SE model, which you can see there. But to be honest with you, I think there are certain SE models, now they're not all like this, where they're getting, I think, maybe dangerously close, especially when you consider like what the cost is now to people of getting, you know, a core model. And I wonder, is there going to be a point again where Paul might have to start saying, look, actually these core ones are better in order to sell more of the US guitars? I don't know. So, you know, like that is exactly the same preset and all of that sort of stuff. I was just flicking between the two. Like, one was in February that I was playing with the core model, and then this is today. I'm wearing the same trousers. They've probably been washed since then. What's crucial to me is that the things that really matter on the guitar, it seems to me like they've kept those the same. So like this bridge looks very similar, and also the neck shape is identical. I'm pretty sure it's identical. 31 to 32, 31 out of 32, so nearly an inch thick here, and I think it was 7/8 of an inch here. And that to me is one of the real selling points of this guitar, is that it's got a proper sort of pro feeling neck to it. Now I would totally be fine telling you that, for instance, the Strat type narrow field model, I felt was a little bit more like the Silver Sky, where to me it didn't necessarily feel like the most singing guitar, or the most sustaining. And I did some demos of it, like up against the Silver Sky, and I think maybe a Player or something like that, or a Vintera. I didn't think it was the best sounding of those guitars, but this one is an incredibly resonant, good sounding, I think, fantastic playing guitar. And here's the point for me, is that I feel like the narrow field telly, as much as I liked that core model, could I realistically see going out and spending £2,500 on a PRS core telly model? Honestly, no, not really. If some hit the market used, I might consider it. But having actually played this SE, could I see going out and buying one of these? Absolutely. And I don't know if the SE quality control is as good as the Americans, but I'm imagining that if this one is great, then they will have made other great ones, you'd hope. I don't know, let me know your thoughts on that in the comments. But, you know, for the price, I think you can get these in the UK for, like, I think the retail is like £979, but you can get them for around £700 to £800. This is the second time that this has happened to me, because I had a PRS DGT core model that I never really got on with and I didn't play. I got a DGT SE initially kind of thinking, like, this is an incredibly expensive guitar. Maybe I'll have to be honest in the video and just end up saying, look, I think this is too much money for this type of guitar. But over time, and even maybe initially, I was totally blown away with it, and I had to kind of come to terms with the fact that probably I was thinking like a little bit wrong in terms of what I was expecting the DGT SE to be, and that the SE thing doesn't necessarily have to mean that it's a budget guitar. The issue for me that we're going to also have to reconcile with is that we're now getting to the point where if Indonesian guitars like this, you know, like the PRS SE Clio, like Strandbergs, like the Ibanez AZ and stuff, are going to be no longer regarded as like budget guitars, and that manufacturers are going to be saying, look, you shouldn't really care where these things are made, like Paul has literally said that, then what is the selling point necessarily, if you're not a huge PRS fan, of a guitar that is made in Maryland versus a guitar that is, to me, similar enough? As I say, like I prefer this to the two others that I played, the Miles Kennedy one and the NF53, is my feeling. Now, I don't have them here to hand to absolutely double check whether that's correct, but I don't remember having as strong a reaction to the guitar as this. I also think it looks better than either the Miles Kennedy or the NF53 in black. The one key difference, and maybe this is the sort of thing that you would keep so that there is a clear distinction between a model made in America and one made in Indonesia, is that in America this model would be nitro, so over time, you know, that might show a bit more wear and stuff like that. I presume bits and pieces are going to be different. One of the key differences is that the inlays are not the exact same, but I kind of even prefer the look of these sort of like fake abalone things on the maple. I think it's got a really classy look. To me, they've nailed this guitar, but I think it's maybe too close to the US model, where, you know, cynically, I imagine that companies like Fender or PRS or Gibson would intentionally sort of hold back some guitars. So maybe as a guitarist, this is the sort of thing that you really want. It's like they just try to make the best guitar possible, whether it's made in Indonesia or in the US. But it comes to a point when you're then saying, well, like, 4 times the price, 3 times at least, are you getting a guitar that is incredibly better than this? And honestly, having played a couple of them, I don't. So I think that's an area where I think you've got to be careful. Especially because the price of building guitars in America is not getting any cheaper. There were some rumblings like yesterday about things happening at PRS. You know, I think a couple of years ago, Fender made some layoffs. And to be honest, they're building more of these guitars over in Indonesia anyway. So that it might not even be crazy to think that at some point, manufacture in Indonesia might sort of overtake some elements of what's being done in other places in the world. Do you know what I mean? Like, if you've got scale, if you've got skilled workers, and if the money that you spend on the guitar goes a little bit further if it's an imported guitar, then, you know, for instance, if I'm liking the way this guitar feels and sounds and looks, and I don't have to spend 3 times the amount to get the equivalent US model, why would I even look at the US model? I think one of the key differences would be this would be slightly less parts in the body. So it wouldn't. So this is like 3, I think. I think it looks like it's 3-piece body. Yeah, definitely 1, 2, 3. But aside from that, you know, the pickups are going to be presumably the Indonesian-made ones. Other slight differences that on the core model, these are like specifically mounted to the body, so the scratch plate is just covering this bit, and like there's a slightly classier look to it in that regard. And yeah, the inlays. But to be honest, like in general, aesthetically, I think it looks just as good. And plays just as good as well. The neck feels amazing. This is, I don't know, probably my favourite PRS neck alongside the PRS Silver Sky. Yeah, I think PRS have got to be really careful with this, to be honest with you, because I don't think you want to be in a situation necessarily where you're building pretty much the same guitar in Indonesia and then people are going, well, actually, I kind of prefer that one to your core model. That's kind of got to be, I guess, in some ways a good thing, in some ways a bad thing. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Have you had that experience with any PRS guitars where you've actually preferred the SE to the USA model? I guess in some ways as well, like if you were going to be taking this thing to play in dodgy pubs and gigs and stuff, that again, you might decide, well, it's better for me if I get a slightly cheaper but just as good looking and maybe similar playing sort of instrument. Yeah. I don't know if these are easy to upgrade electronics wise, but maybe.